Welcome to Soundscape Crusaders,
a music discovery podcast where we pair music with meaning.
Join co-hosts
Nate
and Levi on this journey.
As we dive deep and examine one song an episode,
Discuss what we love about it,
and then pair it with something that emotionally
and tonally
coincides with the song.
It's more like Nate's really big into Legos and shit, so he gets it. Yeah,
we're about to do some Lego stuff. Basically, the Grumps and Gramps is like a special edition of Bat Force Radio, but it's on YouTube and it's specifically for collectors.
Oh dang!
And yeah, we've done about a year of it.
I'll have to check that show out. I like the whole, I get the collecting thing. I get that.
Kelly's a great guest because one, he's done podcasts and has podcasts, and two, he's a musician, which I'm not. Are you, Nate?
Not really anymore.
Okay. Do you play anything, Nate?
I used to play bass in high school.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to try to pick back guitar up again.
Yeah.
Probably the next couple months. I miss it for sure, but life just gets in the way.
You know what's crazy? When all this pandemic stuff hit, I mean, I was like sitting there, when they first told me, yeah, you're going to be working from home now, I was like, man, this is going to be fucking awesome, because that's going to be like 3 hours of my day that I'm going to have back. I can jam. I can do all this stuff. I can't tell you the last time I picked up a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. I need to pick it up because I own like 10.
What's the coolest one you got?
I have a Epiphone Union Jack Noel Gallagher signature series.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I have two. The first was released probably around 15 years ago. And it wasn't, it was a signature model, but it was kind of a cheaper end. Wasn't identical to the one that he played. But then years later, probably about 8 years ago, they did a reissue. And this one is identical to the Union Jack guitar that he played at like Nebworth and Main Road and a lot of big concerts. And by far, it's probably the coolest looking guitar. It's got the Union British flag.
Right. That's really cool.
And
that sounds sick.
It sounds great. I've only played it a couple of times. I'll never play it live. I'll never take it anywhere. I may take it to a studio to play, but
so yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts, because hearing you talk about the sounds of all the different guitars, when you're in the studio, it makes me curious on your thoughts on the actual song and how would you describe that sound?
Well, I chose Back in Black by AC/DC. AC/DC is one of my all-time favorite bands. I've seen them twice, and I was deaf for 3 days afterwards. Just amazing live.
Were you close?
No, this was like at the American Airlines Center. Like, they played in kind of an end stage format where, they're basically at one end of the court and then playing out to the open arena behind them, kind of like a horseshoe. And then they had like a long stage that went out to the middle, through the middle of the crowd. And just a wall of amps. Even though they're not all of those speaker cabinets are on. They're just kind of shells there for the look. But just the PA system is just so loud. It's just crazy. But
man,
so loud but so clear. That's the crazy thing, is that such pure volume, but it's just, they're such great musicians that it's just crystal clear. They hire the best sound technicians out there. It was amazing.
That's amazing because I've been to American Airlines to shows where it sounded like trash.
Yeah, exactly.
So it takes a lot of talent to get an arena that big sounding that great.
Yeah, and I mean, just here you are watching these. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I mean, I guess they are considered senior citizens. I mean, they're what, in their mid 60s, almost 70s, and I mean, they're just running around the stage. Uh, Angus Young is doing his little duck walk, schoolboy outfit prance all around the stage. He doesn't stop. Brian Johnson is just screaming his ass off, and I mean, it was just like, oh my god. And the first time, was when Malcolm was alive, and it was kind of their, I guess, classic lineup. Malcolm, Cliff Williams, Phil Rudd on drums, Brian Johnson on vocals, and Angus Young. What us as Americans know as AC/DC, because they had actually been, around and popular before Brian Johnson even joined the band. It's crazy that they're one of these bands that have two legacies. There's not a lot of bands that have that, and that's in part because their original singer Bon Scott passed away in 1980. And what's crazy about Back in Black is that not only was it Brian Johnson's first album and recordings with AC/DC, but it was literally 5 months after Bon Scott's passing. Like,
Man.
They did not waste time. Bon Scott's dad was like, no, you're going to keep this band going. Don't quit. Part of that is his legacy. If you quit, I lose part of my son again.
Holy shit.
So you're going to keep going. And they had worked with a producer named Mutt Lange. He did their previous album. He's famous for working with like Def Leppard. He was married to Shania Twain. But he helped find Brian Johnson, who was part of a band called Geordie. And so they found him, auditioned some other guys, but ultimately they came back to him just because he had that sound and personality to go with the band. He could take the teasing, he could give his own, he could stand up toe to toe, and plus he was willing to do whatever they wanted to be done. And so yeah, they recorded that album in Jamaica at this shitty little studio. But that's what's crazy about it. It's like, some of the best albums and best recordings come, not when everything's going great for a band, and not in the ideal situation.
I had no idea that the original singer never sung that first.
Right. No. His last album with them was Highway to Hell. And that's what sucks is because, they had been together for all this time, coming from
How
Australia. Oh, probably about 7 years. They'd put out like 3 albums and 3 or 4
and they
albums.
were good records too.
And they were great records.
Yeah.
And they
very
were
much so.
They were just hitting where American radio was picking them up, because Bon Scott kind of had this kind of nasally, whiny voice that a lot of
so good.
Yeah,
so
a lot
good.
of
Yeah.
at the time American US radio wouldn't play them because
Right.
they were different. They were, they wanted Aerosmith and they wanted Led Zeppelin and they wanted Chicago and they wanted all that shit. It's great shit, but they didn't want AC/DC shit. And so they were turned around a lot by US radio. And then finally Highway to Hell came out and they were like, oh, that's a catchy song that launched them to international fame. And then he dies. Yeah, just the fact that they even recorded that album is just a miracle. Um, Even the song Back in Black was just a warm up that Malcolm Young would just play just to kind of get his fingers warmed up and get ready to play. And, he, trust me, I've read this book and interviews and all this stuff. I love ACDC so much.
Man, I had no idea about any of this, so this is super interesting.
So yeah, the riff, the intro riff, the dun 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 dun. That was just him warming up and getting his fingers loose. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of their songs started. How they came to be. Just messing around. Like what's the other one? Thunderstruck. That was not on Back in Black. That was on a album later, but it's the one that you hear that ding 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 ding. That's just Angus. That's his finger exercise that he would get his fingers warmed up, and he's like, "Hey, this is kind of a cool song. I'm going to keep this going." But
that's crazy.
Yeah, they went to Jamaica in this shitty studio where they said it was like literally like concrete walls, block walls that they were just in, and the weather was terrible. It was storms blowing in, which they kind of incorporated in the lyrics of another song, Hell's Bells. And part of the guitar sound for Angus, they were having trouble. I mean, one, they're in Jamaica and they had to ship their equipment around the world. They were having problems getting their equipment to the location and stuff like that. And then even when it was there, they're having problems with the storm shutting down the electricity sometimes, and they didn't have, the best facilities. And he had started using a wireless system on his guitar, which at the time was kind of like new technology. Now everyone uses it, but the settings of that wireless system, you plug your guitar with a short cable into the wireless system, and then it transmits to a receiver that you have plugged into your amp, right? Pretty simple. Right. That settings on that gave him, he noticed a sound that was different than his other recordings, and it allowed him to kind of bring a sheen to his tone. And that literally makes the signature sound of that album. Just that one wireless transmitter.
And that changed
everything about that album.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but this song, I mean, just to me, I mean, I don't know. I've always loved AC/DC because, one, they have their format. They have their formula. They don't change. This is what you get when you buy an AC/DC album. And for me, growing up, being in athletics and stuff, it's almost like if I had to go run, that was who I'm putting on because it gives me that consistent beat to keep my tempo.
Pumps you up.
If I had to go work out, that was what I was doing.
And I mean, that continued to be, and like it wasn't there for people and then it left. Like that song has continued to be that song for people, like even now.
Right. And one thing that's, even the name itself, Back in Black, is a tribute to Bon Scott. That whole album was a tribute to him. Even the album cover, they wanted it to be all black, but the label was like, well, we got to sell it. We need to see your name. So they kind of agreed to, okay, we'll put the name of the band in gray, outlining gray, but everything else is all black. And so that set the the tone there for what this album is. We're going to pay tribute to our fallen brother, and we're memorializing him. But yes, we're back, and this is ACDC. This is what we do. We're not changing, and we're going to keep this going. And that was really part of the cool thing about that album for me too. Is I was like, they're not giving up.
Yeah,
it's kind of a resurgence. That's my song, and for me, it's pretty simple. You know me, I love Batman, and for me, I mean that song right there, like you said, it's a pump up song. It's a song about I don't want to call it a comeback, but yeah, it is kind of a comeback. And so for me, I guess the medium that I would equate it to would be Batman Dark Knight Returns.
Tonight marks the 10th anniversary of the last sighting of the Batman.
All units, robbery in progress. Gotham City Trust.
They call us a gang. Only when they die by our hands will they know Gotham City belongs to the mutants!
What the hell is that?
Where here he comes. He's back. And he's back in black. And he's ready to kick some ass.
that's so perfect.
I love that choice. I love that choice.
Like, and
he's
everything
like,
points
it's kind
to
of like
that.
It's kind of like in Tombstone when he's like, I'm bringing hell with me. Here he is.
Yeah. Wyatt Earp. Oh man.
Yeah.
Great movie. Great movie.
I kind of wish
man.
that
Oh, I
they
love
had
your
put
choice.
Back in Black in the animated movie. It would have been
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Oh, would have worked. That would have worked so well. Very much
Everything
so.
about that song matches everything about The Dark Knight Returns. Like even the lyrics, the tone of the music.
Yeah, it's just tough and mean. It's no frills, just no bullshit. Just
punches you right in the face. And it's so good.
yes.
And you ask for more. Where would you put it? Like if you could take any part of the story and you like that, this is where the music sets in for your movie
Right.
of The Dark Knight Returns.
Okay, here's where it sets in, because obviously, with the name Back in Black, you got to be when he's coming back. So the first part of the story is old man Batman goes psycho again, and he's getting tired of these young punks mistreating people and social injustice and all this stuff,
And he stopped being Batman.
he
right?
stopped being Batman. He hasn't been Batman for
Right.
10 years. He gave it up for a number of reasons. But yes, he's been retired for 10 years, and then certain events have kind of set off his PTSD and triggers him to find that fuel to dress up as Batman. And he goes out and he starts kicking ass and doing all this shit. Well, then he meets a young gang member by the name of Mutant Leader who promptly puts him back in his place. Shows him, yeah, you are an old man and this is a young man's fight. And pretty much almost kills him. He gets his life saved by a young girl named Carrie Kelly that dresses up as Robin. She's been idolizing from afar Batman ever since he started coming back. And then she, on her own, bought herself a Robin costume and found her way to where he was fighting the mutant leader and inadvertently saved his life. And he takes her under his wing. Then he has a plan. He's like, you know what? I can't fight this guy directly. I can't beat this guy. He's too young. He's too strong. He's too fast. So we're going to have to change the game and make him fight at my level. And he sets it up where they fight in a mud pit. That's where Back in Black starts coming in. And then he puts that ass whooping on this guy and like breaks all his arms and legs and pretty much shows the mutant gang, yes, I'm the man. And all of you young punks that think you're gonna, terrorize Gotham City, gotta realize that I will do this to you if you cross me. And he's Back in Black now.
Has that triumphant, yeah.
He goes to another level that he hadn't been that dark in previous comics. And that was kind of the beauty of what Frank Miller did in that story, is that he kind of took a character like Batman that had been known for kind of being a, always a creature of the night, but
Adam West.
Yeah, had a history of campiness and all this stuff, and took him really back to his roots.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've read like some of the first Batman comics, because you can buy those volumes with first like 20 issues or something. You had Batman like shooting people and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it like rides this upwards curve, which I also enjoy. I enjoy the campy Batman at times too. But it's very different and you don't see that often. Like that would be like if Godzilla slowly became, I don't know, more and more campy, and then, well, actually,
it wasn't pretty campy for a while. Well, no, you're exactly right. For a lot of times, those Godzilla movies made in the 60s and early 70s, they were a little cheesy.
Yeah.
And then
same with James Bond, long-standing franchise.
Yeah, a little bit more lighthearted, and then, all it takes is one man's vision saying, you know what, I see him a different way. And this is the way that I would think a character whose whole MO is to install fear into criminals, how he would act and what measures he would take.
It's a perfect song. I'm like kind of mad at myself that I didn't think of that because it's like so blatantly correct.
Well, I was afraid that it would be just too cliche and be like, okay, here's the dad rock, but that's the card I'm going to play. So I played it. Whether you like pop music, whether you like heavy metal music, whether you like classical music, you've heard Back in Black in some form, because it's also one of the most covered songs out there in all forms and fashions.
You hear it in commercials, you hear it in movies.
I've heard orchestral versions. I've heard country versions. I've heard bad versions. I've heard heavy metal versions. I've heard it all. I mean, and it's always good, even as bad as it is. It's kind of like pizza. It can be bad, but it's still good,
Like we were saying before we started recording, I love the song choice. I think Back in Black was the first record I ever listened to front to back, and I was probably 5. It's like something my dad showed me like super, super early. So it's like really nostalgic to me. So I was like super happy to have that picked. Because just like you, Levi, I haven't listened to that song in a good while. So I listened to it on a few times on my way home from work. And I was like, man, this song still kicks ass. So the kind of choice I went with, you can kind of argue it's kind of cliche as well, kind of like with the Batman thing. But it's kind of going off this wave of nostalgia, and kind of like Back in Black, going to the Bryan Johnson era is like, to me, it seems like it always felt like a sequel that stood well on its own as well. So the movie I went with, and this is cliche, it's a movie, but I chose Terminator 2.
Once
he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now his mission...
Get down.
...is to protect it.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's the movie that came to mind because it's a badass movie. Arnold comes back, and he's just as badass as ever. And I was like, this fits so well. Like it's the one thing that came to mind because I was listening to it on my way home from work, and I was like, this is Terminator 2 written all over. This is what I'm going with. But that's also one of those movies I'm like super nostalgic for. Yeah. Like my dad growing up, Levi knows a lot of this, but like my dad like showed us music and movies to my brothers and I. We were like kind of in those formative years. And like I'm like super grateful for that because like it's really like broadened my horizons and kind of like given me a better appreciation of media and movies and music and all that in general. So I just had to go with Terminator 2. It felt good.
That was one of my picks, so thanks for helping narrow it down for me.
Sorry, buddy. It was a good choice, right?
Fantastic.
Love that movie, man.
I was
love this
so
song.
Smart.
Mm-hmm. What's so good about this song? Like whenever I think of hard rock, this is like the quintessential song. That's like if someone's like, "Hey, where do I go for hard rock?" I'm like, Back in Black, like record, single, whatever. It's badass front to back. So I love it. I was so happy with this choice.
I'm still a little mad about that.
Sorry,
but like I feel like a lot of Arnold movies could qualify.
Oh yeah, he's badass. He's just like he was the quintessential macho guy. Love Arnold.
Yeah, but I think out of all the Arnold movies, Terminator 2 is...
Because it's a sequel perfect. And he's, more badass than ever, even though in that first one he's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the parts where in the music goes, da-dun, 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 da-dun. That almost feels like a fight sequence to me.
Right.
Yeah.
You could put this in a lot of good parts in the movie. Oh, man. I love that movie. I'm about to watch that soon.
I need to watch that again soon too.
It's a great movie.
Ooh.
The first one still holds up. I watched it about like a few weeks ago. Still so good.
What also makes it timeless is that I always find something new about it every time I listen to it. And it can be the same with Terminator 2. There's always going to be something new that you never picked up before. Maybe at the time your eye or ear just kind of perceives it a little different this time. Every time I hear that song, there's something different or new that I find. Maybe it's a bass line run or just the way that Phil Rudd, even though Phil Rudd, I mean, he's just the master of tempo, but strikes a snare or a hi-hat a little different on this verse versus the second verse or something like that. But it's, I don't know, it's just a really cool
That's
song.
An excellent.
I couldn't agree more.
That wraps itself up so perfectly.
I mean, it's so nuanced in itself. Yeah. It's just there's so much you can pull out of it, and I agree. It is timeless for sure.
You hear about comfort movies all the time, but it's a comfort song. You know you're gonna love it.
Well, that's always a trademark of one classic. Any type of classic media, that there's always something new that you discover. And it's also, to me, a sign that the creation process was pure, because with a lot of new music now, it's so digitally edited that, I mean, I literally, if I wanted to, I could make, a hip hop song on my laptop in 15 minutes, just copy, paste, make sure it's timed up perfect with the beat on everything, and it just sounds so cookie cutter and vanilla. Sounds perfect, but to me,
right,
and especially in like comic art, but also in music, I find the faults, the cracks, the imperfections give it a little bit more character. And there's a line in one of my favorite Oasis song that says, "True perfection doesn't have to be perfect." And to me, that's what makes it perfect, is that it's not perfect. It's not perfectly in time. Every hit is not the same. And in Terminator 2, I'm sure, you guys know more about it than I do. I love the movie, but you guys have probably watched it a lot more than I do. But I mean, it was filmed on film, so it's going to have some errors. I mean, I'm sure in the background, everything probably wasn't in perfect consistency between certain shots and things like that, which kind of makes it cool because it makes you part of it.
It feels genuine.
Yeah, it feels genuine. It feels like, wow, this is happening in real life.
It is always fun to like go to IMDb and look at like blunders and stuff.
Right.
I always try to do a watch where I just look for the blunders. Levi, so what you gonna end up? What did you end up choosing?
He's gone with King of the Hill.
Hey, if he can argue it, I will listen.
Oh man, I probably could figure something out. I probably could. I love that show so much.
Dang it, Bobby.
That boy ain't right.
Yeah, no, I would pick that, but the song Back in Black just, you always think about like when you heard it the most, and I feel like I heard it from my dad listening to it the most. So it like, brings you back to that age. It ages with you. Like no matter what age, like what time you hear or are first exposed to Back in Black, you're always going to love it. And it's not one of those songs that you get tired of. At least not for me. So there's a couple different ways I could go with this. Because on one hand, I'm kind of feeling like it should be something more classic and crowd pleasing and fun. Or I could go more towards like powerful feeling it gives you, right? I feel like I should go towards Michael Bay movies right now. Because I can hear that song being in like a car chase or something of this movie that I'm thinking of.
Michael Bay even Fast and Furious?
Fast and Furious was one that went through my head for a second. Fast and Furious. And then I was thinking of, Face Off or The Rock. Kind of like you could hear that in one of those. But I think I settled on... it's also a sequel. It's a classic. I think most people that have seen it like it. And it's a lot of people's comfort movies. I actually hadn't seen it at all until rather recently, which I immediately loved. But most people, like, they grow up with it. If they're of a certain age. It's Bad Boys 2.
Okay.
Since 9/11, we've gone high-tech over the water, so the dope runners have gone low. The biggest shipment on record is coming in tonight, and we want to know who's behind it.
What could go wrong with that? With you alive. I can't be in a gunfight every day.
We just want to talk. You want to talk? Well, go. They can't hear you because they're still shooting at you.
Like, you can hear it in that movie. Like, it would be a needle drop if it's not even, I haven't watched it recently.
I haven't seen Bad Boys 2 in so long. I haven't seen that in so long. The first one's still good.
I think it also brings up childhood memories of watching WWE wrestling. Like,
yeah.
Especially like when the NWO, Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart and all that crew were the bad boys of the WWE or whatever, one of the federations. And Macho Man Randy Savage.
Macho Man
Randy Savage. That could totally be someone's entrance song.
Yeah, that's somebody's walkout song, with
it
the big,
has to be.
The fireworks, and it's just like,
yeah, no. Like, it has to be, right?
I mean, it just gets your heart going. You're like, something badass.
Dude, if that was my walkout song, I'd be like, hell yeah, I could kill everybody in here. I'm ready. Like...
Did we...
Did we what?
We all chose, didn't we? So that's it.
Good closing.
Yeah, we don't have that down yet.
Thanks for listening. Next episode, we will be discussing
Day Tripper by the Beatles.
Follow us on Twitter at Sound Crusaders for upcoming episodes and a link to our Spotify playlist. Until next time, bitches, leave.